Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to talk a little bit about changing up your practice plans or spicing up your practice plans, and really what we're going to talk about is kind of rearranging your practice plan to accomplish the things that you need to accomplish, or adding some things into your practice plan that can really focus you and your kids on getting things done throughout the course of a season. Once you kind of address what your issues are and you figure out what you really need to do as a football program, you can kind of add some things or change around your practice plan. I mentioned earlier that this is my first year at a new high school in 15 years. I had been head coach at one school for 15 years previously, and this year I took over. I took over at a school, and it's really, you forget how hard it was to start something and get something going until you have to take over somewhere else again. And we got off to a real rough start. We started the season off 1-4, and a lot of adversity early on. We had a chance to coach the number 8 player in the nation, and just a phenomenal football player, game changer on every down, defensive end, and 3 plays or 4 plays into the third game of the year, he goes down with a season-ending shoulder injury. And so you now take the number 8 player in the country, the best player on your football team on defense, and you lose him 2 games into the year. And then we had another senior another senior on defense that got thrown out of a football game, and had the state then subsequently suspended him for 3 games after that. So we lost him for 3.5 games. All right, then we had 2 other players that were injured, 2 other senior defensive players that were injured throughout the course of the year. All right, and then we had another senior defensive player that I suspended for being late to class, in excess of 5, 6, 7 times, and it got to a point where he wasn't really learning his lesson, and we had to get the point across, so we sat him down for a game. And then on offense, we only had 1 returning starter, or 1.5 returning starters the entire year. So at the beginning of the season on offense, we had a lot of young guys, and we're new to the system. So a lot of things that you can sit around and point fingers and blame and say that's why. But at the end of the day, that we started off 1-4 because as a head coach, I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do for my football team to win games. And after about the 5th game, we sat down as coaching staff and decided, hey, what are some of the things we need to do? What are some of the things we can change? A lot of the things maybe we were doing previously aren't working here. We've got different kids. We're a different staff. Let's figure out what we need to do. And, really, after that 5th game and after we started off 1-4, we basically kind of sat down and said, okay, where are we struggling? We got in a situation where we lost one game 28-27, in which we happened to miss 2 extra points in the game. Now that's not the reason we lost, but those are points that you left out on the field. You scored enough touchdowns to win the game, but you missed 2 extra points and you end up losing the game by 1 point. Okay, so you can look back and talk about the extra points and say, well, if we would have made those extra points, that's not why we lost. We lost for a lot of other reasons. We didn't fit runs very well on defense. We gave up over 300 yards rushing. All right, we didn't finish enough drives on offense. There's a lot of reasons, but a 28-27 loss to a team that's now 7-1 going into week 8 or 9 of their season. And then we lost 2 back-to-back district games in which we were tied 14-14 at the half, and then we were down 14-13 at the half in the next game. And those are 2 games that we lost in the second half. So we kind of sat down and said, all right, what do we need to do different? What do we need to change? So we came up with 3 things that we thought in the second half of those games and late in the other game, 3 things that we thought were really hurting us. The first thing we came up with is we thought that we were just technically and fundamentally not executing our jobs. All right, so the technical and fundamental aspects of playing football, taking on blocks, reading keys, getting off of blocks, running routes at a certain yardage, running routes at where they belong, throwing routes, reading coverages, blocking runs up front, hitting runs where they belong, just technical and fundamental things that we felt like we weren't executing. The second thing that we thought about was, our kids don't know a lot about football situations. We have a lot of 9th and 10th graders starting that really don't know a lot about football situations. And the last thing we thought was, since we were losing games late and we were losing games that we were close in at the half, we just we thought and we felt that our kids just weren't competing for 4 quarters. We felt that we just weren't doing a good job competing all 4 quarters. So what we had to do is we had to kind of look at our practice plans and look at things that we felt like we could get done to kind of change what we were doing to see if we could get better results out. So So the first thing we did was we started during all of our scout periods, we started using 2 scout teams, okay? And what we did was we actually drew up like a depth chart. We made a scout team A depth chart and a scout team B depth chart, all right? And what we did was we set the ball about 30 yards apart from each other. We had 2 balls set, all right, about 30 yards apart from each other, okay? And if we were on defense, let's say, our defense would start, all right, against scout team A. And scout team A would come out and run a play against our defense. After that play was over, our defense then had to turn and run to where the other ball was set to get ready to play against scout team B. While they were turning and running, all right, they were getting a call from the coach, all right, they were getting a call from the defensive coordinator, and then the position coaches might have been coaching them up, running with them, jogging with them, coaching them on things that happened on the last play, all while they're running to get ready to line up to the next play, okay? Now, as they're running to line up to the next play, once they got their defensive call, as they're running towards scout team B, they should be looking at the formation, the personnel, and as we're running, we should have the Mike linebacker saying shut right or shut left, and our free safety should be making, all right, strong right, strong left calls, and then coverage calls based on, you know, what the defensive coordinator called and what we were trying to play. So they had to do all that while running about 25, 20 yards, depending on what type of play scout team A ran. They had to then turn, run, get a call from the coach, get coached by position coaches, all right, and go line up and play against scout team B. Now, what that also allowed us to do, I don't know how a lot of you guys feel about it, but when we get into the season and we're dealing with scout cards, we feel like our practices just come to a screeching halt when we're dealing with scout cards, because you constantly have to teach the scout team, and you hold the card up and say, okay, blue guy, red guy, we got to run this, and maybe it's wing tee or maybe it's flex bone or whatever it is that you don't do on offense, and you got to teach to those scout team kids, and you got to hold the card up. So we felt like our practices were just coming to a screeching halt. So by having 2 scout teams, what that allowed us to do was, while scout team A was running their play, scout team B, there was a coach in that huddle already coaching scout team B on what they needed to do. So that when the play was over, scout team B was already lined up, ready to go. Okay? So what it allowed us to do was to get more reps, because we eliminated the coaching involved in the scout huddle, because we gave them, all right, we gave them 30 to 45 seconds to get things going and get calls and get their scout cards read to get lined up right, while the defense or the offense was going against the other scout crew. Okay? So defensively, what it forced us to do was it forced us to focus on the next call, focus on what the defensive coordinator is saying, focus on the formation and the personnel, and get, as we're running down, okay, it also forced us to get lined up right and get the coverage calls right. Now, it probably helped us with conditioning a little bit. Our guys had to run back and forth. But what it also kept us focused for the entire 10 to 15 minute period. There was no time to stand around while the scout team was in the huddle and the scout team was talking about how to run a certain play, so the defense was just kind of standing around at a lull. There was no time for that. The whole thing was focused for 10 or 15 minutes, because you were going play, run, play, run, play. You're running back and forth. You're getting calls while you're running, so it really challenged our guys to focus the entire time on what the task at hand was, alignment, assignment, getting calls, and really sharpened our focus on what we were trying to do. Now, we do the same thing offensively, all right? And for us, what helped so much was we're an up-tempo team on offense. So anytime we got to use scout cards for the defense, that completely kills everything we're doing as an offense within our tempo, our rhythm, and how we want to play the game. So as soon as we get into scout situations, we completely kill how we're trying to play offensive football. And then we make a lot of administrative mistakes on Friday nights. Snap infractions, not hearing a call, not getting a call, lining up wrong, just administrative penalties that you could, try and hopefully eliminate. Not physical penalties, more mental administrative penalties. Well, now that we got 2 scout groups going, we were able to have a coach in each scout group showing them the defense, the front, the coverage, the blitz, whatever it was, so that when the offense got ready to run a play, the defense was already ready, so it didn't affect our tempo. So now our offense would come from the huddle on the sideline, and they would run a play against Scout A, and then as they were running down to Scout B, all right, I'm signaling the play into the quarterback, and he's yelling out the formations, and our guys are running from Scout A to Scout B, getting lined up, and then we're giving a signal into the quarterback to run a play against Scout B, so that we don't have to wait and change our approach to offensive football because of scout cards. the entire time Scout A is getting, their coach is getting them ready to line up to the next formation and the next play, so that when we turn around and go back, now Scout A is ready to go, so there's no dead time. See, when you're a tempo team on offense, you really can't afford to have the defense waiting to get lined up with scout cars. All right? Because that just affects how you function every single day. And then when you make administrative mistakes on a game in games on Friday night, you kind of look back and go, oh man, we really aren't practicing the way we want to practice because we have to wait for scout cars. So using 2 scout teams helped us tremendously. It got more players involved in practice, which was another thing that was huge. The more players that are involved in practice, the less guys there are on the sideline, all right, kind of causing problems because there aren't enough coaches, or you don't have, extra get-back guys, depending on the size of your staff, to manage the 15 to 20 kids that aren't in getting reps. All right, and then they just become a distraction. So this got more people involved, less people to be a distraction on the sideline. It allowed us to get more reps so we could work on techniques and fundamentals. It allowed our offense to practice the way we want to play on Friday night. Okay, so that was one of the first things we did. Okay, one of the second things we did, all right, is we started, all right, using competitions in practice to teach our kids the value of winning and losing, the value of competing, okay, but also to teach us situations, because we had so many 9th and 10th graders playing, okay, and so many situations pop up in those 2 games those 2 district games that we lost, where it might have been 3rd and 1 and a running back bounces wide instead of just trying to get a yard and get a first down. It might have been short yardage inside the 5-yard line, and we're trying to play man coverage, and our DB is 4 or 5 yards off the ball. It might have been 4th and 4, and you have a punt return with a safe look called, and you're not even trying to block the punt, and one of your kids jumps off sides. All right, just situations that you want to talk about that hurt a lot of teams, but really felt like they were hurting us because we had so many young players playing. And when they happened in the game, we were kind of getting mad at the players, and then I sat back and said, wait a minute now. Maybe we expect a 15 or a 16-year-old to know this as a football player, but if we've never taught them, then we're just as guilty as they are. I was a football kid growing up my whole life. By the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I understood all the nuances and caveats of football. My dad was a Pop Warner coach, and so as a football junkie and a football player growing up and a football coach, there's a lot of things I think high school kids should know. But when they don't know them and I don't teach them, I'm just as guilty as they are. So we sat back and we looked at a lot of those situations, and you watch college games and you see guys on the punt return team, all right, instead of getting away from the ball, they're standing near the ball and the ball bounces and hits them in the leg. You see quarterbacks throw bubble screens, and you see guys not run to the whistle, and it's an incomplete pass and a lateral, and the other team picks it up and scores. You see a lot of those things on Saturday and Sunday, maybe not as much as you do on Friday night, all right, or on Thursday night, or whenever your games are, but you still see them. So we have to teach those things. So we felt like situationally we needed to get better. So one of the first things we also did was put these competitions in practice, okay? First one we had, all right, was just a simple goal line competition, okay? And I'm sure everybody does goal line situations. Everybody does goal line scenarios within their offense and defense. What we did is we went, all right, we started off and we went, all right, goal to go from the 1, and then we went goal to go from the 2, we went goal to go from the 3, we went goal to go from the 4, and we ended with goal to go from the 5, okay? And what we did is we ran 5 plays from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and after every single play, the loser had to do 10 up downs. So it's goal to go from the 1-yard line. Offense gets in, defense does 10 up downs. Offense doesn't get in, offense does 10 up downs. Get right back in, goal to go from the 2. Right back in, goal to go from the 3. Goal to go from the 4. Goal to go from the 5. Okay? Forcing our kids to compete while also teaching them situations and scenarios that happen in football. If it's goal to go from the 1 to 2 or to 3, you better not have your DBs 5 yards deep in the end zone. Okay? If it's goal to go from the 1, 2, 3, your defensive coordinator had better put your defense in some type of goal to go coverage or goal to go call. Your offensive coordinator better get you in things that you can do in short yardage with your personnels or your tempos or your snap counts. On goal to go from the 2-yard line, you may not want to go on 2 to draw the other team off sides, because that's now a 5-yard penalty for you and a yard penalty for them. So you don't want to go on 2 when it's goal to go from the 2-yard line. So it's teaching coaches and players to not only compete, but to play situations and scenarios that are going to come up. All right. So what happened was, we started doing it and started doing it every time whoever lost had to do up downs. Our kids got excited. Our kids got competitive. They started competing all the time in that drill. All right, which is something that we were lacking before. Our coaches started figuring out what calls were good for us on goal to go from the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Our defensive coaches got better. Our offensive coaches got better. Okay, and our kids started taking pride in competing. So what we did was these goal-to-goal competitions. We didn't do goal line periods like most people do. We did competitions, all right, where we actually lined up and said, hey, from the 1, from the 2, from the 3, from the 4, from the 5, every play has a winner and a loser. Just like every play in football has a winner and a loser. All right, and we're going to have consequences for the loser. Those consequences could be up downs, they could be half gassers. You could have a competition and say, hey, the loser eats last at the pregame meal this week. You could do whatever you want. What you do is not really important. The fact that the kids understand there's a consequence to losing, all right, and a consequence to, that things that short-term failures, there's a consequence to not turning in papers in school. There's a consequence to showing up to class late. All right, once you figure out, you get your kids to figure out what consequences are, all right, then you can value competition a little bit more because they can value winning and losing in everyday life and on an every snap, every down basis, or in that realm of thinking to say, hey, you got to value competition on every play, every snap against the guy in front of you. All right, so we started off with our goal-to-go competitions. All right, then the next one we did. All right, all right, we just called it the best of 6. All right, it was the best of 6. Okay, and what it was third down situations. Okay, and it was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6. Okay. Now, depending on the scenarios that you were struggling with your football team, you could very easily start it off by saying, hey, this is 3rd and 3, this is 3rd and 4, this is 3rd and 5, this is 3rd and 6, this is 3rd and 7, this is 3rd and 8. Okay? Might make it a little bit tougher on your offense to win that one, but either way, all right, depending on the scenarios you feel like you're struggling with, you're going with a 3rd down situation and you're going with 6 yardages. For us, we chose 3rd and 1 through 3rd and 6. All right, and what you're going to do is you're going to make it the best of 6. All right, the offense or defense that wins the series is the winner. Okay, so the offense that wins, all right, 4 of the 6, or the defense that wins 4 of the 6 is the winner. So now you're doing it in a competitive series. All right, so if the defense loses 3rd and 1, which, statistically speaking, the defense probably should lose 3rd and 1 a majority of the time. All right, it's not over. They don't have to do the up downs and the half gassers yet. They still have 5 plays to battle back. Just like if you give up a 1st down in a football game, you didn't give up points yet, so you still have a chance to get in a huddle and battle back. All right, so we started doing best of 6. What it also did was it taught our offensive and defensive players situations. 3rd and 1 on offense, if it's a run play, get your shoulders north and south and get me a yard. That's not the time to be dancing sideways, going east and west, trying to break 80-yard touchdown runs. Get me a yard. If there's not a hole, make a hole. Offensive line, maybe you cut your splits down a little bit. Okay? All right? Passing plays. Get your receivers to the sticks. If it's 3rd and 6, don't run a hitch before the down marker, or don't run an out cut or whatever you're running. Okay? Teach your quarterbacks on certain downs. If it's 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6, maybe it's okay to take a sack because we can still punt the ball. Even though we're in a competitive down and distance with a winner and a loser, you still got to be able to teach your quarterback, hey, 3rd and 3, don't throw that thing up for grabs now. You lose this down to the competition, but in a game, this is still 3rd and 3. So we're trying to teach our kids not only the competition of the drill, but also the situation of the down and distance, so that they can understand exactly what, all right, the down and distance is. Okay? So what it got us to do, again, it got our coordinators thinking about what our best calls were. It got our kids used to what we would call in a game in those situations. Okay? It got our kids used to saying, all right, hey, what are we going to see from this personnel group on 3rd and 2? What are they going to do from this personnel group on 3rd and 4? And it got our kids starting to think about football situations while competing on an everyday basis and an every down basis. Okay? All right? And then the last thing we did, all right, I just effectively call it the 40-yard dash. Okay? This was the 40-yard dash. And all it was, all right, it was an offensive drive that started at the 40. Okay? The offense starts at the 40, okay, and it's 4 down territory, and the offense had to score a touchdown. Okay? So what this allowed us to do is it allowed our offense to function in an up-tempo setting like we want it to function. When we did the other 2 competitions, when we did goal to go and we did best of 6, there were always plays coming from the huddle. That's not how we play football on offense. All right? So this competition allowed us to function and operate like we would in an offensive series. If we wanted to come out from the sideline and go speed ball, we could do it. If we wanted to go up tempo, we could do it. If we wanted to freeze, we could do it. We could do whatever we wanted in our offensive setting in a mannerism in which we operate every day. Okay? It got our defense to start thinking about down and distance and what does 4 down territory mean. So now when you start getting into 4 down territory on 3rd and 5, your 3rd and 5 situations and scenarios change a little bit because that offense may run the ball to get to 4th and 2 knowing that it's 4 down territory. So we started to teach our kids a little bit about the situations of where you are on the field. What plays does the other team like to run on this area of the field? What defense and coverage do they like to run? When do they panic and start blitzing? Okay? It got our kids to start thinking about where they were on the field. It got our offense to operate in a competitive setting in the nature in which we want to operate, which is up-tempo football. Okay? It got our kids competing again because this drill was going to have a winner and a loser. We either scored a touchdown or we didn't. All right, so the drill had a winner and a loser. So it got us to compete. It got our kids to compete. All right, and it allowed us to play football with the ball going from the left hash to the right hash to the middle. You know, most of the time on your practice plans, you plan where you want the ball to be spotted, but a lot of times it doesn't get moved up and down a lot. All right, now sometimes a lot of coaches do a better job of moving it up and down, but maybe you only have a certain part of the field. Not everybody has the greatest practice facility. Maybe you only have 50 yards and you can't really move that much. All right, so this got us to march up and down. Penalties, you know, offsides, administrative penalties were marked off. All right, we didn't go crazy with holding or face masks. All right, but in the future, if I had to do it, if I had somebody that could act as a referee, or if we actually had referees come out to practice, you would do it with penalties. You would do it just like you would in a game. Okay, and it got our kids to start figuring out where they were on the field. It got our offense to start taking pride in finishing drives with touchdowns. Okay, it started getting our defense taking pride in understanding what it meant to be 4 downs. Okay? All right? Just because you give up a couple yards on 1st down, it's not over yet. They got to get a 1st down. So it really started teaching a lot of different scenarios to our kids, a lot of different situations, okay? And it got us practicing up-tempo. It got us more reps in the things that we wanted to do, okay? And it got us, all right, situationally better. It got us more, you know, if you want to say, you know, better educated in the game of football. We got technically and fundamentally better because we were getting more reps with what we were doing. And I felt like we were getting more reps in a setting that was more conducive to game-specific teaching. You know, it's one thing to say you need more reps and more indie, and to get more reps on a sled and more reps on block destruction and more reps on things. Yeah, you're always going to need that. Coaches are always going to want indie. You're always going to want more indie. But a lot of times, you need to be in game-specific teaching modes to get across your points to the kids. It has to be in a setting that they can see and physically feel on 3rd and 2, on goal to go from the 3, all right, on a 4 down territory drive from the 40 going in. So I felt like this drill right here made us, all right, you know, it put us in a better setting to teach game-specific things that we needed to get across to our team, okay? Got us competing as an offense and a defense, all right? It got our practices a little bit, you know, more energetic, more intense, okay? And, you know, one of the other things that we did was I didn't script any of these competitions. I scripted practice, okay? And then we had an air horn, and the air horn would signal the end of a period. So if the air horn was blown once, that meant that period was over, and you had to get into your next period. At any time during the practice, if that air horn was blown 3 times, you knew that there was a competition period coming. So no matter where you were within our practice facility, if that horn blew 3 times, every position coach, every group ran, all right, to a certain spot on the practice field, and then I would be yelling, hey, goal to go, best of 6, best of 6. Hey, drives from the 40, 40-yard dash, 40-yard dash. And then our coaches would then know where to go, and we'd have bonnets and other things, and you know, our coaches then knew how to function in that setting, but I never scripted it because I didn't want coaches or players to know when it was coming, all right, because I wanted us to be, you know, I wanted us to be able to function in a setting where anything could happen at any time, just like a sudden change or a turnover. or weather could be different on a game day. I wanted our kids to be spontaneous enough to say, hey, I'm in the middle of Indy, but the horn just blew 3 times and coach is yelling goal to go. So I got to go from Indy to goal to go. Or I'm in the middle of Skeleton and coach just blew the horn 3 times and we're going best of 6 third down situations. All right, so the other thing we did within our practice plan was we changed, all right, we left the plan the same way it always was, and then we just threw in whenever I felt like throwing in. And a lot of times for me as a head coach, I'm type A personality. I'm energetic, I'm high strung, I'm probably wound up all the time. So for me, if the practice, I didn't really know when I was going to do it. If the practice wasn't going well, I said, you know what, the heck with it, boom, 3 horns, let's go goal line right now. I just kind of felt out my players and my practices, and that's what really, has helped us do a better job. The last 4 games we're 3-1. In 3 of those wins, we've scored over 40 points in each one. We had a shutout in one of those wins. And what's really helped us is learning our kids better and them learning us a little bit better and really starting to figure out what I need to do to be successful at this school with this program. Okay? So, throwing it in there in the middle of practice, having the 3 horns blown so everybody knows where to go and when they have to go, all those things have helped us tremendously, all right, kind of get back to playing good football. Unfortunately, we can't make the playoffs. Our mistakes earlier in the season have cost us there. But we still have an opportunity left tomorrow night to get another victory, and we've made strides with our young players moving forward. All right, and sometimes you have to remember it's not all about doing everything the way you know how to do it. Sometimes you got to be flexible and do it what's best for your kids, your program, your coaches, so that you can get the job done. At the end of the day, it's not how you do it; it's how well you do it. Okay, just like in coaching, it's not a matter of how much you know; it's how much you can get your players to know. All right? So when you're thinking about practices, don't think about, well, I did it this way, and my high school coach did it that way, and in college we did it this way, and at clinics these guys said to do it this way. You do it the way that's going to fit your program the best and the way that your kids can and your coaches can function the best. Okay? All right, I hope the rest of you have a good end of the season. Those guys that are going to the playoffs, good luck to you, and hopefully I'll see some of you guys around in the playoffs next year. As always, you won't play well until you play fast.